Hey guys, today we're talking about the Scream franchise, and I'm talking about these movies because not only because I really love them, to be honest, but because I rewatched them recently after several years and I liked them a lot then, but to be honest I didn't remember everything about the movies. But now that I rewatched them for last Halloween, I have to say they're pretty damn good. Not all of them, but even the worst one of them, which is Scream 3, has some good things in it. This is not a normal review because I'm talking about the whole franchise, so I'm not going to dissect everything in every single movie because that would take us like 2,000 hours. I would really want to appreciate everything that I love about these movies, and the first thing that I of course love about these movies are the protagonists, Gale Weathers, Sidney Prescott, and Dewey the policeman. They are really funny characters in the sense that Dewey is just, the stereotype of a policeman in a way, and he's really dumb, but in his dumbness he's sometimes smart, which is kind of funny. I mean, he's kind of the comic relief in the movies. Gale Weathers, who is like the stereotypical also news person, and she always wants to get the scoop and all of that, but she's actually a kind person, even if he only wants to get to the truth by any means necessary. But that doesn't really mean that she's awful. I mean, she does questionable things to get her way basically, but she's not a bad person at the end of the day. The interesting thing about these two characters, at least, and Sydney of course, is that they seem to be stereotypes at the beginning, but then you realize there's more to them than being a stereotype. And Sydney, of course, she's like the stereotypical scream queen of every single movie. I mean, there's classical movies since the 40s, 50s that had this leading lady just being, really harassed by someone and suffering so many things and just being a victim. And of course that was the trope for many years, but with some films like Halloween, for example, that person, that woman that was the victim began to be the hero, began to be something else than just a victim that didn't do anything to save herself and that relied in others to save her. In this movie it's clearly, and I love that progression from 1 to 4 and soon to be 5 movies, that Sydney just grows to be from like this silly little girl from a small town that doesn't really understand anything and then doesn't realize what's happening around her, because that's a big plot of all the movies. But she then grows to be a tough as nails person that just wants to live and just wants to be left alone and just wants to be herself and just enjoy life basically. So that's really curious because she doesn't get to enjoy life just because someone is always trying to kill her basically because of someone else's past. And that's a very interesting thing about these movies, is that it's not Sidney Prescott that was the bad person and that's why she has things happening to her. It was her mother. It was her suffering for things that someone else did, and that's really awful because spoilers. Of course, this is filled with spoilers. In the first movie, it's the two boys that killed her mother that want to kill her. And one of those boys, his father, was actually one of the men she went to bed with. And in the second movie, it's the mother of one of those kids. And in the third movie, it's her brother that she didn't even know she had. He never had that mother that she actually had. And in the fourth movie, it's just a girl who is her family that she's envious that she had that life. So it's always about that past life that Sydney had. You think about it, that's so unfair and so awful to put on a person. I mean, she's really harassed all of these movies, by one or more people just because she didn't do anything. Sydney never did anything and she's paying for someone else's sins, which is a very interesting twist a little bit on this kind of movies, slasher movies, because most slasher movies are pretty straightforward, to be honest. You did something wrong, you're going to pay because the murderer says you have to pay or something like that, and it's very straightforward normally, like with Friday the 13th, that's hard to say for me, and Freddy Krueger, and all of these movies are really just, you did this happens. It's rather simple, but Scream tries to do a little bit different, and that's because it's a meta film. A meta film means that they are aware of themselves and of the horror universe. I mean, they don't know themselves they are in a movie, but there's a movie inside the movie which is called Stab, and that is very interesting because they use that as a plot device to further, especially Scream 2 and 3 and 4 actually too. So it's very interesting how they use that in universe to keep leaping forward and keep doing more movies. And I think number 5 is going to be exactly the same. It's going to use that to go against Sydney in some way, shape or form, and the other protagonists too. Also, I think it's really interesting that everyone is a stereotype in every single one of these movies. I mean, they are really exaggerated types of characters, and I think that's intentional from Wes Craven. I mean, he was a very good horror director. I don't think that someone like him just did these characters that way because it was popular. I don't think that is it. I think he did these characters like that because he knew that people would connect easier with stereotypes, and they would be gladly surprised when they stopped being stereotypes and became something else, or maybe they keep being stereotypes and they were a proof of how stupid that is, basically. Of course, in horror movies, or at least one character has to do something stupid for everything to unfold. In these movies, it kind of depends. I mean, sometimes there are really stupid things like going back into the house. It's like really you haven't understood that, like from the other 3 movies, like come on. Or don't trust people that you don't really know. But in other cases, the characters are actually learning about things that already happened, and like, okay, if I go downstairs I have to bring something because of course I'm going to be butchered down there, so I have to be a little bit smarter. And they appear to learn, which is kind of funny. They don't learn fast enough, I would say, but they learn, and that's very interesting because in horror movies it never happens. I mean, in horror movies people are normally very stupid. It's treated as the way that a horror movie works, but I think that what Scream successfully did is that it kind of inverted the tropes of horror, trying to make something different and always changing something, always trying to make it a little bit smarter in each movie. Of course, again, 3 is really weak in the sense that it's very comedic, and I think that doesn't work in the Scream world. I mean, you have to have comedy, but not like hilarious comedy. And some things that happen in that movie really don't make any sense, like the tape the dead guy leaves for them on how sequels work and how the final installment works. That was very forced. I mean, I didn't like that part, to be honest. But aside from that, in every single movie there are twists and turns that we kind of see, but we don't really know how they are going to come out, or we don't see at all, which is very, very interesting. So I think that horror movies are at their best when they are really thought through and you can dismember them, no pun intended, and then get so much more than you thought you had gotten at the first view. So once you see these movies a lot, you understand way more than it was intentional at the first glance, let's say. And I think all horror movies do that. If you see a good horror movie the first time, the second time, the third time, you learn little things extra, and that really makes the experience much better. And that's why I think the Scream franchise is so damn good. I basically did a marathon on them, and it was just amazing. Every performance is, even if the silly ones work, I mean, it's really great. The art direction actually was pretty damn good throughout the movies. I know that awards and all of these things look down on horror and look down on contemporary movies, but the art direction was actually pretty good. And even in the first one, looking back, it was pretty outstanding. And even the cinematography is really smart in horror. So it's kind of a shame that it's not honored more in the industry. So yeah, that's my review, if you will, of the Scream franchise, and I really would like everyone to see those movies because they're really fucking good. They're just a good time. It's really the best time you have, and I think Sidney Prescott is one of the best heroes ever in movies, and of course one of the best women heroes in movies. I mean, that's obvious. So thank you so much for watching this review, this video. Please comment down below whatever you think about this subject. Of course, also like this video, share on your social media, and of course subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much. Goodbye.